Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I am Lori Wheeler. I'm the Director of Member Engagement, and I have the pleasure of welcoming you to this month's Tech Mashup on a topic that's very much in the forefront of today's society, which is a workforce reimagined. And before we start into our presentation, because this is the first Tech Mashup of the year, I would love it if people put in the chat if they're resolution people. What are your intentions for 2022? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to improve or transform about yourself, about your family, about your business? Please just put some notes in there, because one of the things that we really want everybody that comes to one of our meetings to feel is that you are part of this Tech Manitoba community. You're part of the tech community of Manitoba in general. So let's put some of your resolutions up in the chat, and then everybody else, give them a thumbs up or give them a clap. And if you're brand new to Remo, you can see it's just on your right hand side. There's a general chat, and that's what everybody can see. And then there's little icons just below that is the thumbs up or it's the clap. So let's play along. Authenticity, that is actually a great word of the year, and that gets thumbs up for Kyla. We'll thumbs up her. We'll clap. We'll applaud her too. Health, physical. Host more dinner parties. That's a really great one. So I hope that your year is going really well so far. And I'm going to do our land acknowledgement. So listen with respect, even as you add into our chat. In the spirit of reconciliation, I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the ancestral lands of Treaty 1 territory. This is the original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation. I also want to acknowledge our sponsors, because every one of our sponsors is also a member. So we doubly appreciate what they contribute to our tech community. We'd like to thank Manitoba Institute for Trades and Technology, MITT. We'd like to thank NTT Data, who's been a longtime sponsor of this particular series of tech mashups, and Online Business Systems, which is probably one of our longest, has been a member longer than any other. So we really appreciate them. To learn more about our sponsors, what we're in right now is called presentation mode. So Tammy's going to do her talk on this mode, and then we're going to send you back to the floor mode where you can chat with each other. When you're back on the floor mode, you'll see on the left-hand side that there's little banners or buttons for every one of our sponsors. And if you click on them, that'll just take you to their website. So it's a nice, easy way to learn a little bit more about them. The other thing I was thinking, just commenting, because I'm at Launch Space in the Grain Exchange building, looking out the window, and I'm like, we all are getting a little fatigued with online events, but there are days like today where it's kind of blizzardy and snowy that it's nice for most of us that we can work from home and not have to get out and shovel and get the car out and get to participate in great events like this. So I am going to introduce our awesome speaker. She, as a person, is awesome, and she's got a great topic to talk about. Our featured presenter is Tammy Kasdorf, Business Development Manager with Traction on Demand. And Tammy, you can just put on your camera, put on your mic. You can join me on stage and awkwardly be there as I finish your introduction while people stare at you. And then we'll get ready for you to launch into your talk. So Traction on Demand aims to grow the Salesforce ecosystem by empowering people, enabling organizations, and enriching communities. Traction on Demand started to expand into the Winnipeg marketplace in the spring of last year, and Tammy was their first hire. So it was an awesome, smart move on Traction on Demand's part. As a tech veteran, Tammy brings unique perspectives gained from working side by side with programmers to find the right balance between people, processes, and technology. So what I like about what Tammy has set up for us today is she wants this to be a very interactive presentation. And honestly, it's way more fun if everybody participates. So one of the reasons why we wanted to start with getting you to put some of your own intentions into the chat is we want you to keep using chat because Tammy's going to make this interactive and fun. But one more little snippet I actually want to say about Tammy. She's especially inspired, because this is important because it speaks to who she is. Tammy is especially inspired by helping people take their organizations from simply surviving to growing through change. And we all are experiencing change these days, and that is a great intention for her. So just so you know, throughout the presentation, you can either post questions in the chat or there's a Q&A up in the top right. You have the ability to post questions anonymously, like you go to type it, and then before you actually hit send, it asks you if you want to be anonymous or state your name. So if you're feeling like, ugh, this is a dumb question, I don't want people to know who's asking, you shouldn't ever feel that, because we welcome every question. But if you do want to be anonymous, then that's an easy way to do it. So I'm going to jump off stage and turn it over to you. And thanks for being here, Tammy.
Awesome. Thanks for the great intro. And in full spirit of working from home, obviously I've got my coworker here might be a little noisy, but we'll see how we can do today with that. So to start off, I guess I should make sure everyone can see my screen. And of course, Lori, I might need your help on sharing the right tab. Okay, sorry, we're back. Okay, so I'm going to start off today by really sharing Traction's perspective on the future of work and the trends influencing this redefinition, and really some initiatives that Traction has taken to shape what the new office norm is going to look like. And so before we jump in, a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to have a door prize at the end. And so I know we mentioned that it's going to be an interactive presentation. So I know we've all bought some home office gadgets and tools as we're all working from home. So put in the chat what you think I have bought during the pandemic and what's in my home office. And the first person to guess will win the door prize at the end. And so this year, more and more companies will be rethinking when, not just where work happens. And we're long overdue, I think, for a reinvention of this whole 9-to-5 workday with back-to-back meetings. And companies are looking to really attract and retain top talent. So we're going to be the ones that need to shift to a digital-first approach. And this approach means giving employees what they want most. And that's flexibility, autonomy, and choice about where they work, when they work, and how they will work. And so today I'm really going to focus on these three trends: prioritizing employees, being a platform for change, and embracing new technologies and being digital first. Traction has responded and reimagined our own workforce and really provide some ideas for you to take back to your own organizations to shape your new way of working forward. And so before I jump in, I thought I would introduce myself and in all fun, kind of share what my own workplace work looks like. And so I have mentioned I've got an assistant, Ted, who is constantly at my feet. But I also work from my car, my home office, which is my kitchen table. And I've got the best Christmas gift ever was this foot and calf massager. So I know that's not me, but that's probably a fairly realistic picture of what my working office looks like right now. And my work week is all over the place because I do work across multiple time zones. And I personally am not a 9-to-5er, and I like to work at various times and across multiple days. But to give you a little bit of background on me, I was born and raised just in and around Winnipeg, and both my parents and their families came from small towns near Brandon. And in those days, you either worked on the family farm or you took on a traditional job. working for the railway, the phone system, hydro, and then you'd work for that company for 40 plus years and you retired with your pension and everyone was happy. And so throughout the years when I've told my parents that I'm going to switch jobs, that gives them a great deal of stress. And I, do appreciate a consistent paycheck, but I've never regretted quitting a job and putting my own career on hold to travel because I always knew working in tech that there would be something for me. But once I had children, I realized how stressful the 9 to 5 Monday to Friday commitment really was, especially after my second child. And so I made a conscious decision not to have that kind of job. And I was lucky enough that I worked in tech and that was possible. So I negotiated an arrangement that I would have flexible hours and I didn't want any pressure around my hours while I figured out how to get my kids to daycare and to school and that whole ridiculous kindergarten half day coordination. And I really wanted to be able to work after they went to bed or, I had no problems picking up some of the hours on the weekends. And I was lucky enough to find a business owner who agreed. And I would say that Matt at the time was a visionary in that sense, because this was over 10 years ago. And if our children had a day off school, they could come to the office where we had puppies and candy and big screen TVs and fast internet. Like it was a kid's dream. And there was never any stress in putting your family first. And I realized that at the time, this was revolutionary. So now fast forward to today, and I see a lot more companies are starting to realize that this type of flexibility is necessary. We have kids on laps and Zoom calls, and it's no longer looked down on as unprofessional. I was once late for a client meeting because my daughter bit into a bar of soap as I was going out the door. Like as a parent, you can't make these things up and things happen, and you just have to deal with them and not worry about getting fired. And so I'm really glad to see that flexible work arrangements are quickly becoming the norm and not the exception. And while COVID has accelerated that change, I also think that it has brought on so many great employment options here in Manitoba. And these new options are something Manitoba-based organizations are going to need to take notice of and quickly change their idea of what work looks like. And this fresh way of approaching work is what caught my interest and how I ended up at Traction. So a quick intro to Traction. We are North America's largest dedicated Salesforce consulting and development partner. We develop transformative solutions and SaaS products, and we are really a digital first and customer obsessed company. And so basically companies will buy Salesforce and the software, and then they need experts to come in and show them how to customize it and really get the most out of their investment. Our business has consultants, subject matter experts, programmers, business analysts, designers, project managers, and even change management consultants. And we specialize in verticals like financial, high tech, manufacturing, and nonprofits. And so Traction's been around for about 15 years, and we are headquartered in Burnaby, but we also have physical offices in Nelson, Toronto, Montreal, the US, India, Australia, and New Zealand. We do have a global presence with our everywhere model that I'll be explaining shortly. But as you can see, we're up to 65 people, as Lori mentioned, in Manitoba, and that was in 9 short months. And we're still growing. And if I just stopped here, Traction would look like every other company, but here's why we're not. We're a global community of uncommon thinkers who love to solve challenges, or some of us call them riddles, and we're really redefining the workplace, and that's no different for us. So here's the trends we're seeing and how we're innovating around them. So the first one is really employees are stakeholder number one. So we're moving towards a shift where employees have way more control over their work environment. We're seeing this in the Great Resignation, and you can see this in a shift that's happening based on the sheer amount of job openings. The power is shifting to the employee, and that's a good thing. Employees now have a say, and you're going to see companies that have great cultures and ones that respect their employees really thrive. This isn't to say that the employee is going to make all the decisions, but some things will still be out of their control. But employees will find that their opinions are being listened to and considered more than they ever have in the past. Employees also want to be appreciated for their contributions, and they want to make sure that they can make a difference in the communities while at work. They want to feel respected, supported, and aligned on their company's purpose, vision, and culture. And there are studies that can speak to employees being more inclined to work harder to help their company succeed. So I see that as a win-win. And at Traction, our values are focused on doing good, and we make that a routine aspect of everything in our organization. And so whether it's through our daily actions and thinking about how we can make a difference every day, and it's really no matter how small or insignificant it may seem to us, a smile, a compliment, a helping hand, and these minor gestures have the potential to make major impacts. We use Slack to give shout outs and show gratitude and appreciation for someone's contribution on a project or solving a solution. And it's shared company wide. So these positive affirmations are huge for us because they breed and create more goodwill in the company. And every day this mindset is evolving and growing within our company culture, and it's so energizing. I also want to briefly touch on mental health. I mean, that's a whole presentation on its own, but in the tech world, a lot of us are working in billable hours and and we're really wanting to make sure that our employees aren't working under constant stress and feeling like they're overloaded. I think this is a huge area that we always need to focus on is capacity and context switching. So we want to make sure that everyone can do their best work. So paying attention to capacity and context switching is extremely important. So as we resource projects, we like to check in with each of our teammates to see how they're doing and to find out what's going on both personally and professionally. Someone might be at home homeschooling or taking care of a sick parent, and taking on one more project might be too much for this week. So at Traction, our teammates are telling us what their capacity is, and we're having that conversation every week, and it's so important. We also found that when we were asking our team to switch between multiple projects, it wasn't good for them, it wasn't good for our customers or the business itself. We lost on average of 20 minutes every time someone had to switch between projects. So, because they needed the time to get back up to speed. And that's a lot of time to lose in a week. And so we're now limiting the number of projects. But I mean, that's not an easy switch because you have to change the way you sell, the way your team operates or your whole company operates. But it's had a huge impact on our employees' happiness. So the next thing is the role of business as a platform for change. And I think right now expectations have never been higher for companies to move the needle on the world's greatest challenges, from climate change to widening inequalities. And to do this, corporations really have to shift from a reactive to a proactive mode. So we're putting our money and our time and our efforts towards initiatives that are doing positive things for the environment and the community. And this is really what our employees expect. So being socially responsible is the only option for Traction, and it's always been a top priority. And so the driving force behind all of these initiatives is our philosophy of growing fast, strong, well, and right. And so that's why we're so proud to be a B Corp, of our B Corp certification. We put people and profits and the environment on par with profit. B Corps consider all of society and not just corporate interests. We answer to stakeholders, not just shareholders, and we've taken this to heart and made it a guiding principle in everything we do. Giving back to the community is also extremely important, and for Traction, what that looks like is we give what we're good at, and we're great at everything Salesforce. And so through Traction for Good, which is our impact arm of the organization, we've given out over $3 million in service grants to nonprofits to help them build capacity through technology. We've provided over $400,000 in donations and delivered over 1,400 hours in pro bono consulting during our Bandit Tour for Good. We also have a program that's taught over 800 kids how to program or how to code. This Bandit Tour for Good is a really neat initiative where it's a road trip between Vancouver to San Francisco that usually pre-COVID happens annually. And it's a convoy that's led by the company's 78 Trans Am. The Bandit Tour for Good stops in communities along the way to perform acts of kindness and provide pro bono Salesforce services to local nonprofits. So also as part of our commitment to growing well, we are dedicated to fostering justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So our JEDI goals. And in 2021, we established an impact team, and we've worked hard to identify foundational pillars. And we're in the process of building out the team and growing out our initiatives. But for something to give you an idea of what that means is that could be ensuring equality in compensation regardless of gender, race, color, sex, physical or mental disability, or age. We're also ensuring our hiring processes are aligned with our JEDI goals, and we're also ensuring that our vendors are committed to JEDI. We have an ongoing JEDI speaker series that focuses on educating Tractionites on topics related to justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And some of those topics include anti-Asian hate and the mistreatment of Indigenous peoples in Canada. Now, the one initiative I'm personally excited about is amplifying our collective impact. And we're going to do this through our purpose projects, where we weave our social impact into our clients' project delivery objectives. And so through a commitment of either project revenue and or support towards a deserving community. So our collective organizations are going to come together and amplify the impact that we can have while empowering all of our employees at both companies to pursue their passions and team build in a more meaningful way. I think this really integrates philanthropy into our business and leverages what we're good at and impacts the communities around us. And, in order to keep it a bit interactive, I would love to hear, as a side note, as you're all working in your new norms, how you're dressing for virtual meetings. So if you want to add that in the chat, I'm sure everyone would love to hear how that's going. And so you can see why Traction has doubled in size this year, because it's more than just money and a job. We're building a community of professionals who are really aligning around common values and the belief that doing good can be good for business. And so our collective desire is to make a big change in the world. So our work everywhere model, I'm sure this is the part that most people are very excited to hear about. There's really two parts to our work everywhere model. It's the where and the when. And so we'll start with the where. Collectively, we have 1,200 Tractionites across the globe. Pre-pandemic, we probably had about 40% of our Tractionites working remotely, and we called them our everywheres. But this past year and a half has turned us all into anywheres. And so we can all work from wherever we want. And really, we're on a mission to double in size over the next year. And so we're hiring talented experts from all over. And if COVID has taught us anything, it's that you can work from anywhere. So this is expanding where we look for talent. So we're not just focused on the big city centers any longer. We want a diverse group of people with different perspectives and views. And so that led us to focus on our small towns initiative and really making these small towns tech hubs. Strongly believe in this concept that it's really good for our communities that we live in. Historically, as I mentioned, opportunities for good employment in small towns was really limited and dependent on natural resources. And while all the tech jobs were in the big cities, and they've been drawing away talent from these rural locations. But what we've seen during the pandemic is actually the opposite. There's a demand to move to smaller towns. And I think there's a lot of factors driving that change, like affordability and space. But I believe a big factor is that remote work has become widely accepted. And we no longer need to live where our company's head office is located. So today, with more people working remotely and moving to places where they want to live and they can afford it, small towns have never been more relevant. We expect to see more and more tech hubs opening in rural communities and smaller cities. And so with Traction, we're focusing on opening off rural communities that have traditionally depended on natural resources. And we focused our first efforts in Nelson, BC, where our founder, Greg, grew up. And he saw that a lot of people had to move away to find better jobs, and he wanted to change that. And so this became an opportunity to attract families back to Nelson and really build up the community. And in order to have these great jobs, reskilling was required. And so there's recent research from the World Economic Forum that finds over half of all employees around the world are going to need to upskill or reskill by 2025 to embrace the new responsibilities driven by automation and new technologies. And that doesn't even include the people who are currently unemployed. So at Traction on Demand, we're reskilling people in technology whose career path is no longer viable or who are simply looking for a change. I know in April in my onboarding group, we had a winery rep, a travel agent, someone who was from hospitality, and they were all affected by the COVID shutdowns and were looking for a new career. A critical component is partnerships, and it ties into the whole theme of Traction of everything is about collaboration and partnerships. And so we have those with secondary educational institutions. We partner with universities to nurture and enable local talent. And so this includes our partnership with Simon Fraser University, where we're building a certification to help students advance within or transition into the technology ecosystem. And we also have our partnership and relationship where we're repeating the same thing with Red River College. We also have a program called Traction Access, which is helping to diversify the workforce. And so it's focused specifically on helping support Indigenous peoples and newcomers to Canada by teaching them Salesforce skills. And everything they would need to know to get into this ecosystem. And we've even hired people from the program. The training is currently done by Traction employees who volunteer their time, and it's working out really well for us. And for any of you who aren't aware, the Salesforce ecosystem is huge. I mean, I think originally I thought it was just a CRM, but it's way more than that. And over the last year, I have read and watched stories about Americans who were laid off during COVID, and they spent 6 months online learning and getting certified on their own. It's completely free. All the training is there. And the last number I read was that there was going to be over 9.3 million new jobs created in the Salesforce ecosystem by 2026. Like, that's huge. That just gives you an idea of how big the opportunities are. And so that's how our Small Towns Initiative was launched. The Nelson office, and now Winnipeg is the embodiment of that initiative. And so I'd say our new business model, our new business model is partially about remote work resulting from a global pandemic, but it's much more than that. And it includes other issues such as quality of life, affordable housing, a diversified workforce, lower carbon emissions, and a sustainable, vibrant community. And also don't forget, no commute. This is all well beyond Traction on Demand, though. It's all about companies looking for incredible, intelligent, value-centered, good people to help them grow. And I hope our efforts in Nelson and Winnipeg help amplify the light on the great people that are living in small towns. So next up, in addition to setting up in smaller towns or city centers, we're also challenging the conventional work model and the concept of what an office is. So this past year redefined the traditional working model, but now organizations are looking to pivot into hybrid working options so that employees can feel happier, healthier, productive, and inspired. And so we still have some of our pre-COVID locations, but now we're moving to a future vision. And rather than big offices that everyone can come to daily, we're bringing the workplace to the people. It's our vision to make it so that Tractionites around the world can walk to a place where other Tractionites will be. And so this could be an office, a learning center, a shop, which could be a dedicated coffee shop, a brewery, a karaoke bar, a Legion Hall, or whatever we call it, an everywhere space. It could even be a living room of one of our Tractionites. The work has changed and the workplace has changed too. And this has really led us to the idea of partnering with local businesses who are looking for a way to maximize their underutilized space during a typical Monday to Friday work week. And so by providing a space for employees to interact and collaborate while offsetting a portion of their business costs, this helps provide local businesses with a steady stream of income while maintaining their primary business purpose. So by introducing this shops model, Traction on Demand is really paving the way for companies to make a hybrid model more economical. And this approach just isn't about physical space. It's also about building community and fostering healthy hearts and minds and being sustainable. People want to be able to work from anywhere, but they also crave that human connection. So the pandemic in some ways has isolated us, and our shops initiative is aiming to bring back that community connection that was lost during the pandemic. By creating hubs in the areas where our employees live, we're fostering greater community connection and business growth. And also through these partnerships, our Tractionites can purchase goods from these local businesses, whether it be food or coffee or products. Companies and communities are interdependent of one another. And if we transition from simply delivering a service or a product to building community, we believe we truly can make a positive impact in the world. And part of our new shops concept, we're finding places for employees to gather that are closer to where they live. And so instead of having everyone commute to that central office space that might take an hour or more away from their home, they can walk, ride their bikes, take transit, rather than having to commute. And this is also helping us achieve our carbon neutral objective for 2022 and making a positive environmental impact. We expect environmental initiatives to be a trend to watch for in the future of work. And so Traction has a goal to be carbon neutral by this April and climate positive by 2030. So now that we've covered where work is going to happen, let's talk about the when. So this whole idea in our Work Everywhere model is about breaking the 9 to 5. And there's a study with Future Forum research that shows that 93% of workers want schedule flexibility, and that giving people more control over their calendars increases productivity and decreases stress. It also disproportionately improves the working lives of diverse groups, especially women with children. Employees that feel respected, supported, and aligned on their company's purpose, vision, and culture will be inclined to work harder to help their company succeed. So why is this model successful, and how can others adopt it successfully? I think organizations that give employees what they want most, flexibility, autonomy, and choice of where they work, when they work, and how they work, will be the most effective at attracting and retaining top talent. And I know some employers are going to find this a difficult shift to shift that control to employees. Employees now have huge power to affect change in organizations, both positively and negatively. And that's going to be a challenge for some employers to accept. At Traction on Demand, we encourage our employees to have an owner-founder mentality. We want everyone within the organization, regardless of their job title, to have a say in where we're going and what we're doing. So Greg is our captain, and he's leading us on this journey. But the interesting thing is that it's our collective group of Tractionites that are really shaping the direction and steering the ship. Each Tractionite has the entrepreneurial spirit and is encouraged to use their own ownership mentality to improve not only Traction, but the communities we operate in. And so in Winnipeg specifically, when we look at some of the changes or impact we'd like to make here, our goal is to grow well and right. And that includes hiring a workforce that's representative of the population. So for Winnipeg, our targets include gender parity. So 50% men, 50% women, and 18% Indigenous. And I also don't have the specifics of what our current percentage of rural versus urban Tractionites is, but based on the ones I've met so far, I would guess we're about 20 to 30% rural Tractionites at this point. And so we began our journey in 2021, and we're really working with local groups of Indigenous nonprofits and agencies to build those relationships to engage these local communities. I do want to touch on onboarding because through the years, I have seen that not enough focus and emphasis has really been placed on onboarding in tech companies. There's kind of this mentality of like, hit the ground running when you start your new role. And I think this is where a lot of tech companies are missing a huge opportunity or fail, and they let the new employee down right from the beginning. I understand wanting to dive in, but I also think it's more important to let people ramp up and to get set up properly, meet new people, and take a second to just breathe and take it all in before being assigned to customer-facing projects. Onboarding is more than just filling out forms and getting set up with IT. This is a great opportunity to learn about the company culture, not just learn about it, but also experience it. So at Traction, it's filled with a lot of engaging sessions. It starts off with an intro to a number of awesome Tractionites. And we're not just explaining IT processes and work perks. It's about learning about Traction lore and why Chris's car got painted red or painted pink, bubblegum pink, and hearing about how we make an impact on our employees and our clients and our communities. The other important aspect of onboarding is setting a tone for future career development. From day one, we share with our team members how to set goals for themselves, for their own career development, and help them figure out where they want to contribute and how they can succeed. We have 2 tracks. You can either be a subject matter expert or a leader. So onboarding just isn't like learning. The learning never ends. It is always evolving and continuing. And there's a big focus on enablement and learning new skills. I think in tech, complacency really has no place, and that we always need to be innovating and growing at all times. So the third aspect of redefining the workplace is really focusing on creating community and connections. And I think this is probably the most important aspect when you're managing a remote workforce. It's keeping everyone connected and engaged. And it's really not a small feat. So I can only share a few ideas of what I've seen Traction do, what's really working for us. But I do believe that this should be an area of that's top of mind for everyone. And so I've given a few screenshots of some of the things that happen at Traction, but what we do is we start every week with something we call a Huddlecast, and it's essentially a video that we watch every week. And so Tractionites from across the globe get together and we catch up on everything we need to know, the latest news, we see what work we're doing with what customers and what's going on in our communities. And we also get an update from Greg, our founder, and it's called the Captain's Log. And the Captain's Log is really a recording that Greg makes every week. And it's really an authentic and personal, and we know what is keeping him up at night. And it's really a special part of Traction's culture that I think is pretty unique. The other thing is something we call Donut Pals. And Donut Pals is a great opportunity to meet people across the company. So you randomly get assigned to meet up with people across the company, and you get 30 minutes in your calendar to make a new friend. And then we report back using Slack to tell everyone the great person we met. And it's really just another way to create those connections. We also organize our teams into something we call squads, or some people are assigned to teams. And we have these weekly meetups that aren't business focused. They're just time to get to know everybody on your team personally. So we play games like what was your first car or your first concert, and just really fun things. And in our weekly sales meetings, we celebrate birthdays and engagements, babies, new Jeeps, whatever it is, it's all shared so that everyone can get to know each other. On the professional side, we have something called guilds, and these are groups of people who have a particular interest and really want to brainstorm or nerd out on certain new innovations and ideas around that interest. And so that's very popular. And then the last part, I'll tell you the story about the pink car, but we have this whole random gifts and pranks that creates a lot of goodwill within the teams. And so our employee engagement team sent out a survey asking people what they liked, what they didn't like, what their interests were. And it sounded like there would be some random gifts and surprises sent out. And I think the first post I saw was that someone woke up at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning and found that their whole backyard was filled with bouncies, courtesy of Traction. And so once she got over the shock, she turned it into a block party for all of her neighbors, and it was a lot of fun. But that's just something that we like to do. The other thing about this pink truck is that's actually a black truck that they painted pink as a prank. But in keeping with Traction's way of doing things and making a difference, we turned it into a way, or Chris turned it into a way to raise money. So for every day that he drove his pink truck, he was raising money, and he ended up raising over $20,000 for breast cancer research. So he turned a prank into a really good thing. So these are just some ideas of how you can repurpose for your own organization. Even though we're all separated by geographic region and time zone, it doesn't mean that we can't have those meaningful connections and make new friends. It's just really about putting in the effort and keeping it at the forefront. And I'm sure by this point, if you haven't noticed, collaboration and communication is key for the new workforce. And we make use of some pretty simple technologies. It's huge for us. We use for a variety of reasons, company announcements to keep everybody updated. I've mentioned the shout out channel that we have. We run it for issue specific channels. So if you want to post a question to finance and marketing or IT, anyone from those departments can answer your questions. And once your company hits a certain size and there's more than one person who can answer, this is a great way to use Slack. Because otherwise it's really hard to figure out who does what at every company. The other thing we do is we have project-specific channels. So this is a great way to get a whole group of people who need to know about a project and keep all of that information in one place. It's also a great way for managers to keep on top of a project. So they don't need to check in every day, but if they need to know something specific, they can just jump over to the channel. We also use it for partner and vendor communications, because I'm finding that now some people take 1 to 2 days to answer an email, but if you send them a Slack, people will answer right away. So that's a great tool to use. The other thing that we do that I think is fairly new is recordings. We record everything, and I think it's a huge asset. So we record our meetings, and then that way, because we're working across multiple time zones, and someone could be double booked or busy or away sick or homeschooling, whatever it is, we record our meetings so that people can still catch up and be filled in on what they missed. And that way, we don't have to waste any time circling back to fill someone in. They can just watch the recording and really capture what was said. I also think it's a great way for new team members who are joining projects to get caught up in a quick way. So it's really efficient. And then the last idea is this whole idea of an open sharing model. So we share everything. You can take anyone's presentation deck and collaborate and build upon it. And we really have this mindset of not reinventing the wheel. And so Google Slides and the whole Google Suite really allows us to do that. So I'll leave you today with this one quote from our founder, Greg Malpass. When you're thinking about your own work model, just because it made sense doesn't mean it makes sense anymore. And I think that is so relevant when you're trying to figure out today's new way of working. So I'll end there. Thank you.
I didn't hurry you along, did I?
Nope.
That was great. So did you see, I sent you a private message to tell you, because I was paying attention to the chat, and I do know who got your answer right. But I'll let you be the announcer if you can see it. But in the meantime, I just wanted to make sure that we have 10 minutes for questions that have come from the floor. And then after that, we've got another 15 minutes that will take you back so you can do some networking.
Sure.
Do you see the name? No.
Where do I? In the chat?
There's one specifically. There's one specifically for you, but I'm going to pose this question to you. How do you go about limiting the switching an employee does during their day? Like, any tips on how to facilitate enabling that employee to focus?
Oh, that's a hard one, because that was a 2-year initiative at Traction. That's a big change, because it also affects the way that you want to run your business and what you're going to sell. And so you really have to start looking at what types of projects you're selling. So, retainers that have an hour or two assigned to them a month probably aren't going to work if you're really focused on context switching. But what I have seen in the past at other companies is that we have 1 or 2 people that would focus on all these quick requests that were coming in. And so that was, they were really set up and successful at like this girl, Cindy, she's amazing, that I've worked with before. She loves and thrives in that environment of constantly switching and handling small requests as they come in. So for her, that was a great way, and it was a great way to help the business knock off some of those tasks. But then the rest of the people, what I've seen that really works well is focusing on selling either larger projects or really just structuring your business so that people can be focused in larger blocks of time.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll tell you what, why don't we announce this winner, and then you can take that off your screen, and then you can go back to a bigger view so our audience can see
the answer. I didn't see who it was, though, that guessed it.
Okay, then I get to announce it because I really like this person. It's great. It's Noah Fast from Yes Winnipeg. Guessed it correctly.
That's awesome. And so I will say what the door prize is, because I think this is really important too, is in keeping with our values at Traction of giving back. We're giving Noah a Kiva gift card. And for anyone who doesn't know what Kiva is, everybody who joins Traction gets one at the beginning of their employment. And with this card, you can make a loan to a borrower that inspires you. And they use that money. They explain what they're going to use the money for. And then once they're up and running, they repay the loan. And then you can lend the money again to someone new. So it's like creating a whole goodwill circle. So it's a really nice charity or I guess it's called a microloan company. So yeah.
Do you know, I can actually vouch for Kiva because I've been a Kiva donor for probably almost 20 years. And I love it. And I always invest in women-owned businesses. And so I love that that's the prize that Noah gets to work with. It's great. Okay, here's another question from our audience. How do you get employees and management with more traditional values on board with this free model of remote work?
Free model? Sorry.
Well, just the more, I guess, super flexible model.
Yeah, I think that's a hard one. I was actually just talking to someone before I presented, and I said that I think it is a huge mind shift, and giving up that control is really difficult, right? Because you're wondering, like, are these people working, and what are they doing during the day, and am I getting the most out of them? And I do think it's scary. But on the other hand, I think what I've seen is that when you start to have that trust and empower people, again, this probably comes back to also some hiring practices and making sure that you're hiring the right type of people that have the right mindset and the right skill set. I think you'll be really surprised by what you can get out of people, right? If they feel really respected, and they're going to want to work hard. I think everyone wants to do a good job. They need to feel supported. And I don't know if that answers the question, but
I think you're right. That I think that the hiring practice changes a little bit in terms of, are you a person who needs structure and thrives in structure, or are you self-motivated? And I think some of those questions at the very beginning actually does make a lot of sense.
Well, and I think I should add, like, we're saying that this is a hybrid model. I don't think it has to be all or nothing. And
Right.
I think asking people, like, and getting people to realize how and when they do good work, and maybe some people aren't set up for working from home, and that's okay. And so giving them the option to come into an office every day or something with more structure is totally fine as well. I just don't think it has to be all or nothing. I don't think everyone fits into the same mold.
Yeah.
I think that's more of the mindset you need to adapt.
Right. Okay, I'm going to ask one more quick question because I want to get to one last tiny little segment. So hang with us, audience. We want to tell you about some great upcoming events, but I do want to ask this question. It's a great question by Paul. Do you see Ontario's pending right to disconnect legislation spreading nationally?
That's a hard one. I did see that, and I thought, for me personally, that doesn't work. I actually find that blocks us in. Again, I'm not from HR, so I don't know if my opinion matters here, but like, I personally don't want to be blocked in to having to work 9 to 5. I think that, back to this whole idea of capacity, we really focus on asking people, like, where are you at this week and what can you take on? And I think there's a lot of responsibility on the employees to actually set their boundaries and set their working hours. And so I don't know if we need legislation for it. I think it's more empowering the employees to recognize what they can accomplish and what their working hours are, and then really respect those. I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. That was fabulous. Thank you. It really was fabulous in terms of looking at so many great ideas. Some of them are simple. Some of them don't cost money. Some of them are very easy for people to implement if they're in management, or if you are an individual that you maybe want to talk to your manager about saying, would they be open to some of these things? So thank you. We appreciate you being here today, and we appreciate all the prep that went into preparing this for us. So feel free to shut off your camera and your mic, and I'm just going to make a couple of really fast announcements because we want our audience to know that tomorrow we have a fantastic Manitoba Women in Tech event. There's over 100 people. I think we've got like 115 right now that are signed up for tomorrow. The topic is Pathways to Success in Tech, Achieving Positive Movement in Your Career. And this is really an awesome talk because we've got about 5 individuals that are coming from Skip the Dishes. Some of them are coming as employees. saying, what do you have to do to advocate for yourself? Because you need to take responsibility for your own career. And some of them are coming from the perspective of management, saying, how do you retain great employees and make it possible for them to grow and achieve what they want to achieve within your organization rather than looking around and having to move? The second thing is on February 10th, Tech Manitoba, it has their AGM, and some of you are like, AGM, snore, not this one. This one actually is going to be super awesome because we're doing the formal AGM bits, but then Chris Samir and Andrew Chow, who are the founders of what became Manitoba Unicorn Skip the Dishes, are coming to talk about creating billion-dollar opportunities in the prairies. And they'll talk a little bit about the machine that they've created for building new businesses. So I think that's going to be a really interesting piece. Again, you can register just by clicking on the links in the chat. And then the next tech mashup, so put this in your calendar, is next Tuesday, February 8th. And I've talked about NTT Data being a long-term sponsor. And I was talking to somebody early when we were networking, and they said that they're an intermittent participant in Tech Manitoba events. And I thought that was a great description. Tim Weldman is not an intermittent participant. He's a very, very loyal participant. He's here again today, and we're happy that his organization is going to be presenting about automatically automating the DevOps story. And I'll just quickly tell you what that's about. It's shifting to DevOps is not just a change in technical implementation, but a change in culture. Come join the presentation to see how you can influence the adoption of DevOps in your organization by taking small incremental steps. This presentation is value for all. Expect a deep conversation on specific technical details all the way to organizational benefits as we demystify DevOps. So that's February 8th. And then March 8th, the tech mashup after that is our friends at Online Business Systems talking about how to do everything, a guide to dual track agile product delivery. So have an amazing year. Really, we wish you all the best in this coming year. We hope that you remain healthy. We hope that you remain happy. We hope that you do fulfilling work, whatever that work is. May you find joy in it. And thank you for coming. Thank you for being a Tech Manitoba member. And we look forward to seeing you either tomorrow at the Manitoba Women in Tech, at our AGM on February 10th, or at the Tech Mashup presented by NTT Data. Go back, we'll take you back to networking and enjoy having some more conversations. We're going to leave the event open